Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com, and one more artist feature, random artist feature for today. Pink Floyd for tomorrow. This will be going up. Pink Floyd Part 1, because I think it's going to end up being 3 parts. And just off the bat, I'll say that I don't have all the Pink Floyd records on vinyl, but I have most of them. Anyway, so in order sort of release, I've gone over this. This is like a second draft. I have this compilation. It's called Projected Sounds, which is a lot of recordings that actually came out, that were done before their debut album, Piper at the Gates of Dawn. It includes See Emily Play. Let me just show the track list, and I'll show the record itself in a second. There's like a description about them. A lot of these are like early versions of songs and other songs that weren't released, like Corporal Clegg, Instrumental 1 and 2, Remember a Day, Set Their Controls from the Heart of the Sun, Vegetable Man, Interstellar Overdrive, Scream Thy Last Scream, Lucy Leaves. Lucy Leave. I thought it was Lucy Leaves. But yeah, this is a cool sort of early recordings, EPs, singles, and demos, and just jams. And it's an orange vinyl. So, of course, Pink Floyd's one of those bands that there's so much desire for their stuff, and they've been bootlegged and tape traded and all this stuff for ages. So there's a lot of, naturally also vinyl, a lot of vinyl that I've seen that I never purchased, and of course there's tons of it that I've never actually found that I would probably purchase. So, but in terms of order of releases and that kind of stuff, I'm just going to show it. So then I have 2 copies of Piper at the Gates of Dawn, of course. The standard cover, which happened in many countries. I think this is a British pressing. I could be wrong because it has the EMI address and stuff on here, Middlesex. And this is I don't know what pressing this is because I didn't buy this new, I don't think. But at the same time, I don't see a sticker on it, so I don't remember. Maybe I did and just found a cheap copy. It might be a reissue from maybe sometime in the 70s. But yeah, of course, this album came out in '67 and largely was the product of Syd Barrett's sort of brainchild. I mean, a lot of the early Pink Floyd, from when they formed in whatever it was, '65, until he left the band in '68 or early '69, something like that, was. So, and then here's another version I got. This is an Italian pressing, which may have come out at another point, but of course, the biggest noteworthy thing about it, other than the fact it's from Italy, is the cover art. Kind of like Steve Howe showing up on Time and a Word, I think it is. They show David Gilmour on the cover, even though he didn't play a note on this record. But the track listings are the same, I believe, on both this and the other version I just showed. Again, I'm not going to have the time to track down, okay, this is 71, that's why. So it came out literally 4 years after the original release of Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and hence why in Italy they decided they either couldn't get the rights to use the cover art, or decided just to throw on maybe a current picture of the band. So my favorites on this record, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, probably being Astronomy Domine, the opening track, Interstellar Overdrive, the instrumental. It's very trippy and heavy and experimental, both in psychedelic rock, progressive rock, and classic rock. Very influential, very forward-thinking and ahead of its time in a lot of ways. Bike, I've always loved the lyric, "You're the kind of girl that fits in with my world. I'll give you everything, anything if you want me to." Or want to, I think it is. And Flaming, that's the other real highlight track to me on this record, Piper at the Gates of Dawn. And I like the rest of the record, but I also feel that this record maybe has become fairly overrated, really, over the last decade or 2 decades. I remember in Rolling Stone magazine I got from 1987, this was one of the 3 or 4 Pink Floyd albums they chose. The Wall wasn't in there. Granted, I'm not a huge fan of The Wall, but the hipsters like this record, and a lot of them feel that the Syd stuff and the Syd material and his solo work is better than a lot of the other music they did after he left. So. And alright, so then I have another version of that includes Piper at the Gates of Dawn. This is called A Nice Pair, which at the time when I bought this on vinyl, I thought it was kind of rare. These are the two jackets. It's not, you know, outrageously rare, and I didn't pay tons of money for this. It has a lot of pictures, of course, cool artwork, including some women that aren't wearing a lot of clothing. It's a gatefold. I don't remember what year it came out. It was since like maybe 69, 70, but it is their first two albums, as I was just looking at earlier today. My Birthday Gets It Done, with the same track list. And then I don't have a standalone copy of, so this is a Harvest pressing. I don't have a standalone I don't have a standalone copy of Saucerful of Secrets, but I do have one right here that came with a nice pair, of course. And I'll just kind of get this out there with Saucerful of Secrets. I did some sort of rediscovery, research kind of thing for a message board about 10 years ago about Pink Floyd, especially working on not just this period, but all their history, but a lot of the early the Dark Side of the Moon Pink Floyd. And I can kind of concluded this record almost was my least favorite, if not my least favorite one. It's not a record that I loved. I do really enjoy the song Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun. And I haven't really listened to it probably in about 10 years, so some of these other songs on Saucerful of Secrets I probably could go for revisiting. But, you know, like, let's see here, the title track, Seesaw, Jug Band Blues. I know that Jug Band Blues was a Sid song. Let There Be More Light. Remember a Day, okay, I take that back. Set the Controls and Remember a Day are the two kind of highlight tracks for me. And Corporal Clegg, I think that, okay, that's when they used quite a bit. It got kind of recognizable. And I know when Shadow Gallery did their Floydian Memories medley, which I absolutely love, I would totally recommend to any Pink Floyd fan. Someday I'll do a video about Shadow Gallery. I'll probably have to talk in detail about that medley. That's 25 minutes, but it's on YouTube. You can find it. So anyway, I did not wrap this up. So moving on, that and then a couple really sort of scattered releases that are kind of the next one would be the next one, Relics, which is a compilation and includes some of the songs that weren't on Piper the Gates at Dawn and maybe Saucerful of Secrets. Julia Dream, just dreamy. Dream pop, dream rock, and it's just trippy and mesmerizing. I love that piece. And I believe Arnold Lane and possibly CM Play is on this. Yes. And then songs like Paint Box and then, Remember a Day. So it really is sort of a mixture of singles and then some songs that were maybe lesser known. Interstellar Overdrive is on it though, so that's from Piper That Gets It Done. Cyrus Minor, that's from More. The Nile song's also from More. So it's really just a compilation. Careful with that axe, Eugene. I guess I would say as a compilation, this works even though it has a lot of album tracks songs that ended up on either some albums or soundtracks before or then after, but or it may have been before anyways. So I'm not really paying attention to the exact release dates on these, just maybe the year. But yeah, this is a great kind of compilation. It's not really considered a proper release, but at least if you didn't have some of the singles, you could get those singles, especially See Emily Play, which is terrific psychedelic pop. Maybe my favorite Syd Barrett song in some ways. And some of the other ones on here. So anyway, moving on, I have Zabriske Point, which was maybe the first. I'm not sure about the order. That More came out around the same time, and they may have all come out in 1970 actually, because this came out in 70. More, the film soundtrack came out in 1969. So I'm wrong about that quite slightly. I could talk about More. I just talked about some of the songs on it, but I don't have it on vinyl. I've been seeking it out for a reasonable price for a while. So, but I have this, and I haven't. I listened to some of the bootleg recordings on cassette years ago, but it's been a while, and it's not just looking at some of the track lists just earlier today, it's not just Pink Floyd. It's the Grateful Dead, it's Jerry Garcia solo, it's a band called Kaleidoscope, and a band called the Youngbloods besides Pink Floyd. And I think a lot of it is obviously for the film Zabriske Point, and a lot of like jams and psychedelic noodlings at points. But I was just mentioning, I've seen more the film, and I've seen, which I'll mention another film, the Valet or La Valet, but I don't believe I ever got a chance to see this, even though I think it was actually at the same place I rented DVDs for more, and the Valet, La Valet, and my knowledge and way to like sort of rank or compare this record even among this whole period of time is just sparse because I haven't gotten around to listening to it. But it has songs like Country Song, Unknown Song, Love Scene. So obviously it's during a love scene on the movie. You can just kind of get a sense about the artwork. Anyways, it's a romantic, hippie drama, as it seems like all the soundtracks they did. But it has Crumbling Land by them as well, and then Come In number 51, Your Time Is Up. Then, of course, I just mentioned Garcia, someone named Roscoe Holcomb. You can see the track list there. So it's a gatefold. Just, my situation with vinyl, playing my records is still limited, if not down to going to be happening in the future, but not happening right now. So then we come to 1970s also. So 69, 70, they released a whole bunch of stuff. But this record, which I'm wearing the shirt for, Atom Heart Mother, was a record I didn't originally know that much about, but and then I listened to some of the recordings on these like tape parades I got and like live recordings and enjoyed, but still never really got into it until the mid 2000s. So this is like a reissue I think I got off of Harvest, and great red colored vinyl. And this may even be 180 gram if I'm not mistaken. But just talking about it, I'll show the other copy I got. So the thing is with a lot of these records, including this one, maybe specifically the most, it took me a long time to find a reasonably priced used copy of it. And then I found another one, a second one, soon thereafter. So this one's on Harvest too. So I love this record, and so I kind of have justification for owning multiple copies. Not only because it's a colored vinyl, but just because, maybe to compare the fidelity. But as far as why I love it, it just kind of, as I continue to check it out, especially, hearing it in the mid-2000s, the title track, the symphonic element to it, with all the instruments and stuff like that, was one part that I just, it's 23 minutes, and it's their first kind of epic of sorts, real extensive piece, even though it musically is a lot different than a lot of stuff they did, just in the use of the woodwinds and the strings and the brass instruments. But it's a terrific, it's got the 6 or 7 movements. And then the second side, between If, Summer 68, Fat Old Sun, mesmerizing, well-written, melodic, lyrically interesting, and just kind of very mood-inducing, that just totally works for me. And then Psychedelic Breakfast is kind of the same way, except it's just instrumental with samples, and I believe it's Nick Mason talking. I got the sense, though, that this album, Richard Wright really had a strong influence on a lot of the music, especially Summer 68. I just adore this record. It's 4.5 stars. I mean, I probably should place it at 5 stars. It may eventually happen. I just... because it doesn't have that extra oomph that I always look for a 5-star record, but it's about as perfect as a record otherwise as I can conclude. So then, this was 71. Meddle. 1971, and this is a popular record among hipsters, and especially in the last 15 years. I think the Dark Side of the Moon popularity, this kind of carried over to some people. And this is another record it took me a long time to find on vinyl for a reasonable price, but I eventually did. Again, this is on Harvest, so I've the majority of my Pink Floyd vinyl collections on that label. But this is, as much as this is sort of ballyhooed and, championed, it's an excellent record. And especially, of course, the closing 20-some-odd minute piece, 23-minute piece, Echoes. Very dreamy, very kind of forward-thinking, experimental, and the experiments worked. The lyric "Bright Ambassadors of Morning," of course, the band Pure Reason Revolution ended up using for a song. The little interval pattern I often think of that piece for, among other things. That no 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 no. I always think of the Phantom of the Opera for that. But the little pin and it's just amazing song. I don't know if I would rate it above Atom Heart Mother, the title track, but you're again splitting hairs. But otherwise, the first side, talking about One of These Days, Pillow of Winds, and Fearless, all excellent songs. Even the One of These Days I've heard many times, but Fearless is maybe the most underrated and the deep track among those three. And Fearless, I like the little sample. I always think of a soccer match. But the hipsters like that song, and it's gotten on the radio in recent years, but I still really enjoy it. Saint-Tropez and Seamus are okay at best. They add levity to something that's sort of trying to be maybe kind of serious. I'm not going to use the word pretentious, because that's not what I think of when I think of that word, but just to add levity and maybe a little bit non-serious tone to something that's sort of being kind of serious. But and I guess the cover art's supposed to be a pig's ear, which is weird. So then, the last record I'm going to show in this video is Obscured by Clouds, which I would say among all these records is my favorite, and it's the most underrated. And so again, I have another copy from Harvest, another record that took me a while to find. I remember getting this at a record show though, and it may have one or two scratches on it, but I'm assured that the performance of this record is fine. But yeah, this is one of my favorite records, and this and Atom Heart from this period I'd put 1, 2, almost switch the two. Childhood's End's one of the best songs they ever wrote. David Gilmour ever wrote. I know they wrote this record in like 3 weeks or something, and it was for the soundtrack for the La Vallée or the Valley. It came out in '72, so it was actually recorded and released, maybe even written before The Dark Side of the Moon. Let's see, The Gold That's in the and What's the Deal. Both just kind of catchy, energetic, upbeat tracks. Free 4 as well. I almost think of The Who when I hear that song. When You're In, Burning Bridges, absolutely Curtains, the closing piece with the tribal chanting and stuff. I think it's cinematic, so it's the soundtrack to this film. I kind of had that in mind when I first got into this. The opening title track piece, Stay. I just find this record flows. It's less is more. It's trippy. It's experimental, and it's not being anything more than it needs to be. And that's why it really worked for me. And I guess maybe the fact it's underrated. So, anyway, that's enough for Pink Floyd for part 1. Stay tuned for part 2. Thanks for watching.